This is a Power 98.7 podcast. Now we're talking. Subscribe to Power 98.7 podcasts in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. There's more on power987.co.za.
We're going to speak about a subject matter that I think it goes overlooked. Quite often, actually, it gets overlooked because trauma of this kind, there's almost an expectation that people need to move on. Or maybe trauma of this kind, people don't know how to be there, how to support, how to be the solid structure for those that have gone through this or those that are going through this. We're talking about something that has always been told and termed as unnatural. Have you ever heard that term when they say it's unnatural? What happens when a parent loses a child? The unnatural phenomena of it. In fact, it's one of the greatest traumas imaginable is when parents have to deal with the death of a child. It actually has been known to produce greater stress than dealing with the death of a parent or dealing with the death of a spouse. In fact, the child's death is especially traumatic because it is often unexpected and it is also in violation of the usual, you know what I said, it's unnatural. It's always in violation of the usual order of things in which the child is expected to bury the parent. PowerFM, I welcome my guest for this conversation this afternoon. Let me ask you a very difficult, very vulnerable question. Have you ever had to deal with the loss of a child? Whether the child was a baby at birth, whether the child was a toddler, whether the child was a teenager, or an adult child. And how are you dealing with it? Or do you know of a loved one who's had to deal with the loss of a child and they just can't get out of that space? That depressive, what is happening? This is not natural space. This is one of those conversations where we literally open up Pandora's box. And if you want to be vulnerable, if you want to be anonymous, you can do so on 0861987000. But have you ever lost a child? How are you dealing? Maybe the question is, how are you? How are you? With this, let's welcome our guests for the conversation this afternoon. We've got Rebecca Warsop, who's a counselor from the Compassionate Friends and Bereaved Parent. Rebecca, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Welcome to Power Lunch.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And we've also got social worker and counselor Thabiseng Libina, no stranger to the Power Lunch family. And Thabiseng, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, and good afternoon.
I must say this is a very difficult subject to tackle. I was telling even my producer that I woke up this morning knowing what we're going to talk about, and I thought, oh, why me? Because it's not easy. It requires a certain amount of immersion. But the person that knows, Rebecca, how just not easy it is you. Before we talk about Compassionate Friends as well as the trauma in losing a child, can you just share briefly your experience?
Yeah, sure. I lost my son. His name was J.B. Warsop. He was 12 years old. Sadly, he was killed instantly in a car accident in 2004. And yeah, been 18 years on a long journey. So it varies. So the journey is so individual to everyone who loses a child. And that's something that's, I think, so important for your listeners to be aware of. You're going to get people who are saying, you should be better. I remember my doctor particularly said to me after 3 months, I think it's time that you played golf with your husband again. And it's like, I've just lost my son. How can I play golf again? So I think people who haven't gone through the experience of losing a child, want to give advice and want you to get better and feel better. And it's a very, very long journey and a very individual journey for each one of us.
Yeah, but Thabiseng, do we ever unpack enough the psychological journey that is involved in losing a child?
I think we never do. Instead, what we do most of the time, we try to help the parents get over the pain. We want them to get better. We want to make them forget what they went through. But unfortunately, the reality is that once you've lost a child, things are never the same, and the change that you have to live with lives with you every day. Rebecca mentioned that her son passed away 18 years ago. That's exactly what a parent does. The fact that your child is no longer before you physically doesn't mean that mentally the relationship has ended. The relationship between the mother or the parent and the child continues in a different form, because as a parent, you continue to count the years, you continue to count the days, you continue to count the milestones, the things that they would be doing at the moment if they were here. So it's one thing that we fail to understand, that it's that pain. We cannot rescue them from it, but we need to help them live with it, because it's a pain that they're going to live with it for as long as God shall bless them with days on this earth.
Yeah. Rebecca, I mean, if we had to take you back to 18 years ago, the sudden nature of that pulling away of that child, can you just take us through just some of the feelings you were going through, and just some of the emotions that you were going through as you were trying to navigate how I can imagine saying this is not normal, this cannot be, but just the feelings that are involved in that kind of loss?
I think, my experience was just a complete whirlwind of emotions. Ranging from, obviously, because it was a sudden death and there was a huge amount of shock and disbelief. Could this possibly be happening? Am I living in a dream? Am I going to wake up and it'll all be all right tomorrow? And then the complete turmoil of emotions of, despair, of anger, of disbelief, of not trusting what happened, of what's going to happen now, how am I going to survive, how's my family going to survive, constant questioning. But I think for me, it's just that complete whirlwind of emotions that you can deal with, especially early on. In the first couple of months for me was just managing that tidal wave of varying emotions.
And Tabi saying, could it also be partly that every parent, when they have this baby, when they have this child, every parent has plans, and it's like these plans get taken away?
Exactly. As a parent, when you have a child, no parent ever expects such. No parent ever expects to lose a child. And also, when the child passes on, the plans that you had continue to somehow live. You continue to wish and wonder how life could have turned out had they never passed on. So even if the child is no more, even if you get to a point of acceptance or whatever, but that what if continues to live with you. How life would have been had my child been here. How there would be at this, because remember, there's also secondary losses as well that comes with losing a child. The primary loss is your child initial, but you've lost so much. You've lost an opportunity of being a grandparent. You've lost an opportunity of experiencing certain steps and milestones. Those milestones have been taken away from you, and you are going to leave them without them, which may be a trigger for you as you go through. My child would have been going through matric. That milestone, that time, can be a trigger for you as a parent. My child could be getting married at this moment. That moment, that thinking of such could be a trigger for you. So those secondary losses that you get to live on a daily basis with the loss of your child always keeps you wonder what could have been. But we move on. We don't say they don't accept, but it's the reality of what a parent goes through and has to overcome on a daily basis.
Rebecca, and with the compassionate friends, do you ever find parents saying, I suffer from guilt?
Yeah. I mean, I think you get, again, a whole range of emotions are explored. And yeah, that's normal. I mean, obviously depends on the circumstances of death, because at Compassionate Friends, we're there for bereaved parents who come in with a whole range of losses, like, almost you said at the introduction, there's people who've had miscarriages, lost babies, within the first few hours. But then you've also dealing with, children who have died through murders, suicides, a whole range of things. And so, guilt is one of a common thing, because we often think, well, what else could we have done differently? How could I have, and you rerun that scenario in your head so many times. If I'd turned this way as opposed to that way when I was driving, would it have made a difference, in the car accident?
Were you in the car with your son?
I fortunately wasn't,
Okay.
Because he was killed instantly. And I always say that because I don't know whether I would have been brave enough to have been there in that moment for him. But my husband was actually driving him with his younger brother back from Neisner on holiday. Yeah. And for the first time ever, we actually hadn't travelled as a family. So I stayed behind with my sister who travelled.
We're going to talk about it. We're going to open it up. We've got Rebecca Warsop, who's a counselor from the Compassionate Friends and Bereaved Parents. So she knows. She's able to empathize with this subject matter. And Tabi Singh being our social work and counselor, much trusted, she knows. And the question we're asking is, let's be vulnerable. Have you ever lost a child? How are you? How are you this afternoon? Bonolo, hi in Pretoria.
Hi, Faith. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. And you, Mama? Go ahead.
Yes, I lost my child, my twin, one of my twins. He was at school in Cape Town in 2018. It was on the 17th of June, on the Father's Day. So I still battle, because even the police, because this child was even hanged in a park where the children are, in something that the children are riding in the park.
Oh, wait, I understand, Bonolo. So we're here, and it's okay to cry. We're all here. We've got you. We've got you this afternoon.
Okay, and now the thing is, you can't even find closure. Yeah. The police didn't make investigation after a fight with them. Is them that they are doing it now. And he was a twin. You can imagine if the other twin is birthday or whatever, we're celebrating anything with the other twin. It's such a pain. I don't want to tell any lies.
I can imagine. Bonolo, let's just understand quickly. Your child was found hanging.
Yes, in a park.
In a park. How old was your child?
21.
21 years old.
They just turned 21 on the 18th of April in 2018.
So they're two boys?
They were two boys, yeah. And up to this day, the police were just dark and diving. They didn't do this. I had to go through a lot. Commissioner's office, commissioner's what, and I'm still battling to get it right, because even his phone was found in Google too. And now the police were using the phone. It was a whole lot of things. So you can't even get closure. It's such a pain. I don't know. I don't know how.
It happened 4 years ago. It's very fresh.
Yes, 4 years ago. And my friend, the other friend of mine, I've just we were raising our children together. Her child was killed now recently in October at Maboni. I'm telling you, my pain started from scratch.
Jeez, I'm so sorry.
So you know what? Everything triggers, and anything triggers everything. to be honest.
Yeah, Rebecca, maybe let's start off with
Okay.
you. Rebecca,
Thank you.
Yeah.
listen in on the radio, Mama. How do we reach out to Bonolo? What do we say? This is a very fresh wound. 4 years ago, the child was found hanging. Investigation looks as though it hasn't gone anywhere, and that she keeps reliving a trauma because that child is part of a twin.
Yeah. So just firstly, so sorry, Panola, for what you're going through. But, this is sadly is a common circumstance that I found in the counselling at Compassionate Friends, is that it's very difficult when you lose a child through those circumstances. We deal with quite a few murders in South Africa, and it's a whole new level for a parent to have to go through, besides the loss, that you're dealing with the loss of your child. You're now having to work with authorities that aren't supporting you, that are blocking you, that aren't helping you in the ways that they should be. And so that brings a whole another level of complication into one's grief. And as much as possible, we need to sort of, in my opinion, separate those two, because you've got to work with the beautiful memories that you have of your child in the times that you've got, and to live with those and feel those and remember all those good times. And then for me, allocating time to deal, trying to resolve the insanity of the situation around the death.
And in Tabi saying, as Rebecca's speaking about it, surely you don't have time to grieve if you're busy going to and fro, back and forth with police and investigations and trying to figure out exactly what happened. When does Bonolo actually grieve?
Yeah, it's very sad. Actually, when we talk about grief, we also talk about things that influence one's grief. Rebecca mentioned that each one's grief journey is unique, because no two people experience grief the same, and it is such things that shapes and forms each one's grief journey. So having those feelings of feeling that the authorities are not helping, the man and meet your child passed on, and to be thinking that no one seemed to care that is a human being that life was ended, adds more. But it's important for Bonolo to allow herself to grieve for her son and separate the process of authority from each other, and let her grief be pure, because all these things aside, they contaminate the grief, and they kind of gives one an impression that maybe if something was done, the grief will end. But unfortunately, it doesn't. At the moment, it influences heavily, but the real truth also as well is that it doesn't change it, because at the end of the day, even if those people are found, you're still going to continue in your grief journey. So separating the two and allowing the grief to proceed on its own while you are still also looking for the other processes to be resolved. It's okay, instead of mixing the two.
Got you. I'm going to go to Rhodoport. Hi, Jabu.
Hi, Faith Njani.
Sepila Njani.
I'm okay. I lost my child in 2019 at birth. I was ready for the child. I did everything. We went to mama checkups, everything. On Friday, prior to the birth, on Friday the baby was kicking. Everything was fine. We went for a scanner. I took her to the hospital. And the early hours of the morning on Saturday, bangifonele esibhedlela, so I come. Bangifika lapha, umntwana akaphili, the child. I don't know what happened. Not even the nurse can explain what happened. Not even my wife can explain what happened. Nobody knows what happened. At that moment, I was damaged. When I speak about it, I become so emotional.
And it's okay.
Because I was looking forward to have my son. But that opportunity, I don't know what happened to it. I became I started developing anger issues towards our nurses and doctors at the hospital because no one could explain. At least I wanted to explain what happened. No one can tell me. But I was like, no, the child was playing. The guy was kicking. Everything was okay. What happened? Nobody knows. Now, mind you, it's still painful when I think about it. It hurts. I don't wish this to happen to anyone. This is the worst thing that can happen to anyone.
Jabu, I'm going to ask just to take a breath for me. When we come back, we're going to have Rebecca and Tabby saying to speak about what maybe you can do to help you navigate the feelings that you're feeling, the anger, the frustration, the non-closure you're feeling of the subject. And the conversation we're having today is about losing a child. It's been deemed as unusual. It's deemed as unnatural. Have you ever lost a child? Have you ever had to bury your child? How are you? It's 1:30. Let's get you latest now in Power News.
Call Faith on 0861 987 000.
It is 26 minutes to go before the top of the hour. We're having a conversation about grief. What happens when you lose a child? The grief that you go through when losing a child, the trauma that you go through when you lose a child, how the world is expecting you to move on, but you just can't as a parent. We've got Rebecca Warsop, counselor from Compassionate Friends and bereaved parent. Debbie Senglibina, our social work and counsellor, is also in this conversation with us. And fam, 0861987000 as we create a very safe space for you to vent. You can talk, you can vent, you can tell us about how much it still hurts. It's okay. This is the kind of conversation where we know that we're opening up literally the emotions and we're okay. We're okay with that. If you want to phone us and you just want to share your frustrations or share your hurt, you can do so on 0861987000. Jabu from Rudaport, you were speaking about how you were looking forward to having your baby and your baby did not make it. Your baby passed away.
Yes, ma'am.
Rebecca, Jabu was planning, right? He had anticipation, he had plans, he was looking forward to being a dad to this child. How do we speak to him?
Yeah. So Jabu, just my condolences and thoughts with you. It's just, again, it's just the immense shock of you have this dream, you have a whole picture ahead of you which is created during that pregnancy period, and then that is taken so cruelly away from you, and it's dealing with that hurt and that grief of your dreams and the losses of your dreams as well as the child that was within, and it's a journey, and again there are two elements for me. There is the one, the loss of the child and the dreams of the future, and to separate that from the trauma around how that was handled in the hospital, the anger that must have been felt with the lack of information that was given. So those are two things that need to be sort of handled separately for me.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead, Rebecca.
No, you moved. I think Tabby's saying I'd love to hear what she would say too.
How do we then separate and allow Jabu to have the process where he gets angry, and how does he then navigate this anger that he feels?
I'm sorry, Jabu, for your loss, and it's okay to be angry. We know when you are angry, it's fair to acknowledge the anger and process it until you are able to resolve it. But it is also important. Grief, let me just mention, one needs to give themselves permission to grieve. At the end of the day, you need to allow yourself to grieve. Grieve the loss of your child, grieve the loss of the future, like Rebecca is saying. It's something that you need to make a conscious decision and give yourself permission to embark on that journey of grief and grieving for your child the best way you would know how, because no one can come and tell you how your grief journey is going to be. But it's important, I would say, he can go for therapy so that he can explore further these anger issues, the blame and everything, because anger at the end of the day destroys us it doesn't build us if it's not expressed and dealt with in the most positive way. As much as anger is a normal and a human emotion, it's important how we deal with it. It's the how we deal with it, the part that makes the difference. So I would highly recommend that he gets himself to therapy so that he can deal with that anger in a manner that will put him at a position where he will consciously make that decision to say, I'm letting go of the anger and I'm now giving myself permission and allowing myself to grieve the loss of my son.
It's about giving yourself permission there, Jabu. Do you hear that?
Yes, I'll try the therapy. I'll try therapy and see how it works out.
Try it.
But it's very painful.
I can imagine. We can also give you, Ntabi Singh, is that okay if we give you Jabu's number so that he can start the counseling?
Not a problem. And I can also give him a virtual session if possible.
That would be awesome.
Not a problem.
That would be awesome. Jabu, we're going to organize for you a counseling session with Ntabi Singh Libina. Is that okay?
I'll gladly be happy. I'll be happy for a therapy session.
Okay, we're going to give you Ntabi Singh's number. Okay, let's go to Lawrence in Rudaport. Hi, Lawrence.
And your guest?
Yes, sir. Hi.
I'm good. Well, I'm not a parent. I lost a sibling when he was 2006. I lost a sibling. So now I'm a firstborn and the lastborn of my mom. So sometimes when I'm sitting alone in the house, I imagine how it would be to have a little brother so I can play with. So even this passing of kids also affects us as
The
siblings.
Yeah.
Yes, and I don't even know how my mom is dealing with this thing because I can't even ask her. How do you feel? How is she grieving? So, yeah, it affects us all.
Lawrence, may I ask, how old would your sibling have been? Or how old was your sibling when he passed?
He was 5 years old.
5 years old.
Yes.
You know, you've brought in such an interesting component to this, and thank you so much for sharing, Lawrence. You can listen in. Rebecca, the impact that it has on the siblings now. The parents are grieving, they are trying to process this, but there are other kids in the house who are also grieving, having lost someone so significant to them.
Yeah, it's very tough, and I've seen that with my own children in terms of their journey of having lost their elder brother. And you know, as a parent, I was so focused on my own grief that there was very little energy to give to my children. I was just trying to, cope as best I could, getting up every day, and trying to love them as much as I could. But I think the impact on your other children it is just immense. And also in terms of, what you allow to happen within your own family situation. So we were a family that talked about our loss a lot, so JB is still talked about, almost daily in our family, 18 years later. But it sounded like, in Lawrence's situation, he's saying he can't talk necessarily to his mum. And maybe that is a little starting point is to say, is there an opportunity to just really open it up with his mum? Because maybe she would like to talk too. You never know. Often we find with grieving parents and supporters of grieving parents that they don't want to say anything because they don't want to hurt people or they don't want to bring it to top of mind. And as a parent, it's always there with you, So, yes, some people don't want necessarily to talk about it, but it's often good just to ask, is there an opportunity to chat about this and to share your feelings?
Yeah.
And again, as siblings, sometimes we also need our own therapy or counselling, and Compassionate Friends does offer support for bereaved siblings as well. And so that is another opportunity for them to explore, their immense loss. And there's, again, it's that whole grief journey of what we've lost, the dreams of our future, that my brother's not there for me to help look after my mum, my daughter's not there for me to do this. So it is, there's an immense amount that needs to be explored, and I think counselling can really help in that sense.
Yeah. And Tabi's saying, how does somebody open up that conversation in the family and say, Mom, Dad, I know you've lost a child, but I've lost my sibling. I too feel the loss that you are going through. Especially as to Rebecca's point, some parents are so consumed by the grief, rightfully so, that there is no room to look beyond that and say, oh shucks, the kids are grieving too. So how can the kids then also say, guys, let's open this circle of grief up a little bit more so that we can include us as well, who've also lost someone?
It's not an easy thing to do, Faith, because first of all, you don't want to be the one that would be like opening the wound for your mom, because what parents do a lot of the time when they are grieving, they also don't want to show their pain in front of their children, or they believe they are not showing it, or they don't want to hurt their kids. So it's more like each one is grieving in their own little corner, thinking they are protecting the other one. And now it's not easy for the other one to invite the other person in, because they think, I don't want to be spoiling their mood. They look like they're doing fine. They look like they've made progress. I don't want to be the reason to take them back. So it's not easy, but we have to start somewhere. It always helps to grieve collectively. As much as we each have our own unique experiences of grief, although we've lost one person, it's important to learn to grieve as a family, where we all talk about. So it's not going to be an easy one, but it's something that is possible. We can start by birthdays, or a simple, Mom, how are you doing since my brother passed on? And you don't know the feedback that you may receive, whether it will be warm. The parent can be shocked and feel that I don't want to overwhelm my child, but make them aware that I want us to grieve together. I want us to walk this journey together. I usually say it's not a situation of walking a mile in my shoe, but it's a situation of walking that mile with me. Let's walk this mile together.
Mike in Karen Park. Hi, Mike.
Fred, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks, and you, sir. Go ahead.
I lost my son. He was brutally killed.
I'm here, Mike.
You hear me? My son was brutally killed in 2015.
In 2016?
1-5.
2015.
Yes.
Ooh.
And the killer is known. The police arrested the killer, and the killer was freed at court. We lost the case. It's so sad. I'm telling you, we lost of this country. While a person kills a person and goes just like that free. And that's one of the painful things that can ever happen to you, Faith. Because after my son was killed, actually my son, before he was killed, people knew that he's going to be killed by those people that killed him.
People knew?
Yes, because we had my partner got a call from my stepdaughter in Potchefstroom that my late son's name is Neo. That Neo is going to be killed. There are people looking for Neo, and those people looked for Neo and got Neo and killed Neo. And the suspects were arrested. I don't know who pinpointed the suspect. He was arrested, but he was released on Sunday. He killed my son on a Sunday. Sorry, he was killed on a Sunday. While we are still arranging the funeral on Thursday, the police came to tell us that they've arrested the suspect. On Sunday, we buried my son on Saturday. On Sunday, the suspect was released from police station in Haramti.
Sure.
And we lost the case, as I speak. It's so sad. And the police. I'm going to be honest with you. The case was at Garankuwa. The police at Garankuwa didn't do the investigation properly. I took the case to provincial office in Joburg. They appointed the investigators, but I lost the case of my son's death.
Based on what? Lack of evidence?
Lack of evidence from the people, the witnesses who were with my son. But when we got the stories later, that they were called in police station before the suspect was released. We don't know what went on. But that is what is happening in this country.
How old was your son, Mike? Can I just
my
ask?
son was 25 years.
Yeah.
Was in internship with Telkom. He was a brilliant young man.
Yeah.
And a handsome young man, a brilliant male, my right-hand man. I cannot forget talking about now, but I accepted his death. What I want to say to you, Faith, is immediately when Nell was killed, I went to a psychologist, but really nothing happened after I consulted with the psychologist. I healed when time goes on, because I went to court, I saw the killers, and the killer's father had an attitude with me at court. I reported him at the authorities, nothing happened, but now I've accepted that Nell is no more, and I've given everything to God, because this country, the laws of this country will never help you anyway.
I'm so sorry for your loss, Mike. I really am. And I think for the mere fact that you said his name in all the airwaves, right? Yeah. So all of Gauteng is listening. All of South Africa is listening. Those that are streaming us are listening to this. So Neo's name, and I said intentionally, Neo's name lives on even now in the airwaves. He's more alive in spirit now because you've said his name so publicly. But I really am so sorry for your loss.
It makes me to heal while I'm talking out this thing.
Yeah.
It makes me to heal. I must say it. And even if the killers and whoever who knows about this thing is listening to me, I'm talking the honest truth about the death of my son that I've lost. And I'm not going to hide anything.
Well, that's why we've got this kind of safe space. And Mike, thank you so much for calling and trusting us with your story. We appreciate it. Now it lives on.
And I think that thing should not happen to anyone.
I know, sir. From your mouth to God's ears, I know. Milan in the Val, hi.
Hi, Faith.
Yes, sir. Hi, go ahead.
I didn't want to talk about this. I'm becoming emotional.
It's okay.
I lost my child in 2015 because of... I never believed that I need to have a medical aid because I trusted the public hospital, Faith. And my wife happened to lose... we lose a precious boy. And we named him Melvin, because we knew he was a boy. I don't know, because I'm calling the Val, because there's hospitals around here in the Val, and it was a public hospital, because they couldn't identify my wife had this BP, blood pressure and whatever, and my son died in the process, So it's very, very emotional, and I can tell you, Faith, there's a lot of things that is happening about losing the child. I don't know, but that's what happened. That's what I can share, and I don't know.
Okay.
I'm becoming emotional, like I'm saying. Okay. I'm trying to hold myself.
No, it's okay. It's safe here. You can cry if you want to.
I had to lose my child because of the hospital was so negligent. I mean, I went there by 8 o'clock in the morning, but we left at 4 o'clock. We couldn't be attended, and my wife was screaming with pains and whatever, because I didn't believe that we need to have a medical aid. I believed in hospital for government, and I could afford it. I can tell you I could afford medical aid, but I didn't believe that. And I had to lose a child. But it's fine. I have a son in front of me. After that child, we lost him. 2016, we happened to, God blessed us with with my son. His name is Ethan. He's with me here in the car. So then that's a good thing about it. But I can tell it's not a good thing, Faith. It's not a good thing to experience it. Really, it's not a good thing. And I wish my wife is listening to me. But she said to me, I forgive the government hospital because we had a beautiful son. And that's it.
Sure. Milan, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, it's fine.
Thank you.
I'm very emotional.
It's okay. But thank you for letting it out and releasing it. We're going to speak to Ntabi Singh and Rebecca after this.
Urgent, topical, timely. Power 98.7. Getting you talking about what matters.
All right, it's 6 minutes to the top of the hour. Sure, it's been a very emotional conversation. Maybe let's start off with you and Tabi saying, how do we speak to our brothers here? Milan, who's been phoning in, who's speaking and articulating his experience and sharing even his anger at the public health system that he trusted so much.
Sure, this is a very. I usually say to myself when I work with parents or anyone that has lost a loved one, that bereavement counseling is the worst form of counseling because there is no amount of skill, there is no amount of theory that is going to take the pain away. But my approach when I work with people that have lost their loved one, I make an example of the wound so that we are clear with what we want to achieve through therapy. When you have a wound and the wound is bleeding, it's important for us to take care of the wound until it's healed and you are left with a scar. And when you are left with the scar, you will always know and remember how you got that wound. But the wound will not be, the scar doesn't bleed. So the whole purpose of therapy is not to take away all that memories, is not to erase everything. The intention is not to rescue you from the pain, but is rather to help you form your grief journey and be more self-aware so that when the memories, when the anger, when everything comes, you are able to get to a place where you can process everything in a healthier manner and be able to move on, because nothing anyone can do or say will bring back your child. But we don't want you to live in that, carrying that anger, that bitterness, that frustration with you. We need you to give yourself permission to grieve. Always when you look at that scar, remember how you got it. Remember how it was hurting. But it cannot bleed forever. We don't want you to be bleeding forever. So I would say I wish our parents that called in today can get to that point of healing. Yes, they are not going to forget what happened, but may they get to a point where it's scars that is left and the wound is no longer bleeding.
Yeah, in a moment, Rebecca, I also want us to talk a little bit about how do you start the conversation of not forgetting the memory of your child. Jeanette, Mapopane. Hi, Jeanette. Hi, Jeanette.
Hello, guys.
Kitemo guy.
We are in a conference with Jeanette, so I see my twin, eh?
Okay.
Yeah, I've lost my son last year, 12th May. My son.
Oh, you guys are in a conference call. We're in a three-way conference call. Okay, so get Jeanette Lima.
Yes, with my twin, Jennifer.
Oh, Jennifer. So who's speaking now? Is it Jeanette or Jennifer?
Jennifer speaking.
Okay, there we go. It's all three. It's the two of you.
I'm the mother.
Okay. Hello, Jennifer. Hi, Sissy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I lost my son last year, 12th April. Jennifer was 9 years, 11 months. Hello?
I'm listening to you.
Yeah, so my son was 11 months. My son, it was a normal day. He was not sick. It was on Easter Monday, breakfast until the evening when my son vomita as are you okay now? I said, yeah, I'm sharp. After that, I winka little, I rushed my son to Akashia, Dr. Brazilian, he got his seizure 6 times. After 6 times ill, my son went to the ICU. So the doctor just assured me, no, only a 6 centimeter of a brain clot on overclot on the brain, and said to me, tomorrow neuro utomona. Tomorrow neuro hakiya hamona Tuesday. Neuro armona. I don't have the details. My son is bleeding right in the middle of the brain. Fortunately, the day on Monday, Easter Monday, my son asked for Katamiri. The head was like clean. He doesn't have a bruise, a scar, or whatever. So he was breathing right in the middle of the brain. Chica Basete. On the third day, doctor, there's no a reaction as a brain activity. Monday, the following day, the following week, 12th April, my son passed on because he was brain dead. He couldn't wake up. I had so much ambition for my son. My son was a very clever, bubbly person. Flexible. Wow. So the void is sitting one like the person who was talking to us, advising. I like what he said. Ari, the wound must not bleed forever. There was a time the wound was bleeding, but sometimes for me now the wound in a little the scar in a wound. Some days I'm okay, some days I'm not. I could miss my son. I could fortunately in analytics side I could watch those videos and smile. Because before it was hitting me, why? But then I told myself I couldn't mourn forever because it's going to kill me.
And Jennifer, this happened last year.
Last year, April. 2012.
Okay, I'm going to give this one some time.
And the other thing, I'm the twin. The other thing I wanted to comment. It's Jeanette. Nani was he won a spelling bee at one, the youngest. And then he does not qualify for and a teacher Armano, the way I potentially again. The way we were dreaming or Nani would live, the occupational therapists are one intelligence, they are the intelligence I have him check out 14 years.
Wow. Jennifer, Jeanette, hold tight. We're going to speak to this issue. We're going to speak to it. It's 2:00 now. Let's get your latest in Power News.
Power Lunch with Faith Mangope. Weekdays 12 to 3 p.m. on Power 98.7.
Thank you so much for staying with us in conversation. A very vulnerable conversation that we're having this afternoon on Power Lunch on Power 98.7. Now we're talking about grief, the losing a child, something that has been deemed unnatural, not normal, something that should not be happening. But unfortunately, it is the reality for many parents in this country, for many siblings in this country. And we're asking the question, how are you? We've got Ntabiseng Libina, a social worker, as well as counselor, as well as Rebecca Warsop, counselor from the Compassionate Friends and Bereaved Parent as well. PowerFM 0861987000. We're giving ourselves an opportunity to grieve this afternoon on the platform, and this opportunity is yours. Jeanette and Jennifer, hi, I know you're still with me. You were saying, Jeanette, that before we went into the break that he was a spelling bee. He was winning spelling bees.
Yeah, it was even 20 which year because he won a spelling bee. He won in that year. Then. Nalimo grade 2 was the youngest in a qualified look and teacher are the potentially let's enter this child. And then that year he won the spelling bee at one.
Oh. You guys, you both just sent me the child's video.
The video at TikTok, yeah.
You just sent me the TikTok video. Is it okay if I share it?
Yeah, you can share it.
Can I just retweet it?
Share it.
Because I'm looking at him like just, oh man, Janet and Jennifer, my gosh, what would you say? Okay.
So the other thing I wanted to say, Faith, my twin is the one that her son passed on. My twin had to Hakajo what makes him happy Kuruhashiana and her poster below the background of their picture. People will question why would we frequently so? Why would so? If it makes my twin happy or sharp, people stop questioning why I thought so. Because it's my twin. There are times I can see Hori about is in his own and then it came off space, so I gave her that space. So people like to question how you mourn, how you do what, and then you know what makes us heal as a family again, Faith. If the day was ordained, we cannot do anything. If and then he lived up to this life, we feel he lived, and he was a comedian. The messages that we got from his school, the last time we talked, you said to me, we were laughing. The last time, those kind of stories, when you hear Nani lived, even 9 years.
He looks like such a beautiful boy. Like he's so lively. He's very, very beautiful. He's beautiful.
You know what, Sophie, I just want to say something. As Jennifer, I thought myself, life is not fair or unfair. It's just is.
Oh, that's deep. Life is not fair or unfair. It just is.
It's just is. Yes.
I get you. Rebecca's right here, another fellow mom to speak to. Rebecca, you've been listening attentively to the conversation we've been having. It's a conference call, but I'd like to bring you into this one now. And the part that I picked up was people want to dictate how one should grieve and when the grieving process should start and stop. Just speak to us from that perspective in terms of being allowed the permission to grieve how we want to grieve.
Yeah, and I think that is such a very, very important thing, is that, and I said earlier, everybody's journey is so individual. There's no time scale on your grief. It's not going to start now and end now if you go through the certain stages of grief. Everybody's stage is different. Everybody's experience is so different. And, you have lots of people who really wanting to do the best for you, want you to move on and whatever, and will say, give you time limits or will suggest things. But it's actually your journey, and to reach that point of, if hopefully eventually you can reach some point of acceptance and some sort of purpose in your life as a result of it. And it's just so, for me, I can't express enough how important it is to allow everybody to do it their way. And it's great to have, like Compassionate Friends organization. It's fantastic in terms of, Tabitha Singh made the point, it's healthy to grieve in community. And that's what the Compassionate Friends organization allows. So it allows you to mix with a range of people that are taking different lengths of time in their griefs, so that you can share their experiences, and that can help you, move in a little small way.
Yeah. And I would love for you to share the details of Compassionate Friends after we've wrapped up our conversation, Rebecca. I can imagine many families would love to get that support. Moses and Centurion, I know that you're about to enter a meeting, but you wanted to have your chance to share. Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, Faith, how are you?
I'm good, and you, sir? Go ahead.
So what happened to me was I lost my son in 2019. He was 7 years old. But I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't sad for the fact that he died. I actually wanted him to die because he was suffering. According to me, he was not supposed to be born, because even the doctor said he's not going to have a complete and full life, because he had, I think, a brain say. So 95% of his brain was not developed. He had hydrocephalus. So you can imagine his daily routine was just saying, lying in bed, eating, sleeping. Even at 7, he was still on a diaper. So the doctor advised us it's either termination or he's going to need 24/7 care. So me and the mother, we agreed termination. The next day she comes back and says, no, my mother, meaning the grandmother, decided no, in their family they don't do that. They're going to go to church because the pastor said the child is going to be all right. But all that time, while my son was suffering, always in and out of hospitals, different operations, the church was not there. The people who said it's going to be all right were not there. It was just us. So I'm more sad in the fact that he suffered, not that he died. I don't know if it's
makes complete sense.
And if it's making me a bad person, I'd rather be a bad person, because obviously I was sad on the day, especially even on the day we buried him. But every time when I feel pain, when I think of him, I think of the suffering. Like every time being in hospital, different type of hospitals, operation this, operation that. And the funny part is that what we thought was going to kill him didn't. Cancer attacked him within a month, like out of nowhere, boom, cancer. He's gone.
Sure. Moses, I am relieved to hear that you're saying you found peace in the fact that the suffering is over. that part is so beautiful to hear, that you're saying the suffering is over. And we're going to have Ntabi Singh and Rebecca as well speak into the situation. But thank you so much for sharing.
Okay, cool.
And thank you very much for being present in this conversation. I'm going to go to Carol before I come back to you, Ntabi Singh and Rebecca. Carol in Soweto, hi.
Hi, Faith, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. And you, Mama? Go ahead.
Okay, mine is, it happened last year, February.
Last year, 2021?
Yeah.
Okay.
When my son went to the ATM.
Okay.
And he was accompanied by a friend. And when he got there, apparently there were 3 guys standing there. So they got suspicious when they saw these guys standing there. And then they turned around. As they walked away, these guys started chasing them, and they got my son. And the friend ran away. And then the friend ran to, I don't know if you know Vilagazi Street. There's a restaurant called Sud Restaurant. The friend went and asked the security to help. And the security apparently just didn't bother. And then they took my son. The surveillance tape shows that they took my son back to the ATM, but because there was no money in his account, and then they left with him, and apparently my son was coming all the way. They could hear my son in the next street at the robots in the next street screaming. And so I wasn't staying with him. So when I went home on Saturday, that happened on the Thursday. When I went home on Saturday, my son wasn't there, and his friends told us about the incident. We looked all over for my son, and then we went to the police station, Orlando Police Station, to go and report. And then our police are just not helpful at all. They told me to go and look at the morgue without knowing if my son is alive or not. They told me to go around and go and look at the morgue for my son. And that time, you're just hoping to find him alive. I think about a week later, I found him at Baragwanath Hospital. Somebody called me and told me that there's a child, there's somebody there. No, I went the first time, and he was lying there, and Faith, they beat him up so badly that I couldn't recognize my own son.
Sure.
And I said to them, no, this is not my son, and I walked away. I left. And then someone told us that there's somebody at Baragwanath Hospital who is unidentified, but he calls himself, and then he said Tiamo Rowan Lekoma. So I went back, and they showed me the same person that I said it's not my son. And then I started looking for his birthmark. He's got a birthmark on his chest. Then I saw the birthmark. My son was severely beaten. And after that, I went to the police station and told them that I found my son. And that happened on the 24th of February. And then on the 21st of March, my son passed on because his brain was badly damaged.
I'm sorry, Carol. I'm so sorry.
We don't have help in this country. I mean, if the security could at least just blow the whistle or something, we couldn't have been spoken about the story today. There's no help in this country anyway. And when the police asked him why he didn't help, he said he was scared. So it means the people who killed my son are knowing, because why would he be scared?
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
And it's so painful. It is just so painful. I can't stop. My daughter and I were talking about him this morning because she passed her matric. And she was 8 years younger than him. And we were talking about him this morning, about how he always used to say to my daughter, I'm 8 years older than you. You have to listen to me. And he always used to say to her, when you started school, when he was, I think, in grade, I think it was in grade 3, and then when my daughter came, and he said to me, Mommy, when I'm in matric, and he always used to count that when I'm in this grade, the sister will be in that grade, and then he said he'll be doing this and that for his sister, and yeah, and now we're talking about him in the past.
I'm sorry, Carol. I tried my best to hold it together for this conversation, but you sent me over the edge. I am so sorry.
Yeah,
I'm very sorry.
The previous caller, the twins, who were talking about people saying, tweet, why are you over tweeting? Why are you? I'm actually going through the same thing where people will say, why is he still on your status? I mean, you won't get over. I don't want to get over him.
Yeah.
I don't want to get over him. He was my son. Yes, he passed on. Yes, he's not here anymore. But I still love him.
Of course. Okay.
And thank you so much for listening.
You know what? I will listen to you again and 100 times more if I have to, just so that I can give you the space to mourn your child. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Carol.
Power Lunch with Faith Mangope. Weekdays 12 to 3 p.m. on Power 98.7.
Now we're talking. Okay. We're going to get through it. All right. Let's go to Mahlatsi in Attridgeville. We're going to go and wrap up with our guests, Ntabi Singh as well as Rebecca Warsop, who are joining us for this conversation. Rebecca's from the Compassionate Friends, and of course Ntabi Singh Libina as a social worker and counsellor. Mahlatsi in Attridgeville, hi.
Hi, how sweet, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks, and you, sir. Go ahead.
Hey, how sweet. This thing is very hard, serious.
Yeah.
To lose your daughter or your son, your child. I lost my daughter in 2005, 29 February. She was killed by her dog.
Her dog?
Yeah.
How old was she, Mahlatsi?
5 years.
5 years old.
Mm.
What happened?
And then, that day, I was at the funeral, came back, and then it was my sister's birthday in Orchard. Before I go, I was with her and my mom. She wanted to see my aunt. They went there with my mom, and then she didn't want to go with the car. She was working with my mom. After that, she wanted to see her grandfather at her mom's place. They went there again. After she came back at home and said to my brother, Ramhol, please remove this car. I want to play with my bicycle. Before she plays with her bicycle, she said, Granny, can I make you some tea? Then she did make some tea. And I said to her, Nana, Daddy will see you tomorrow. And then I'm going to your aunt's birthday. She said to me, Daddy, I love you. I said, I love you to my angel. It was her last week. When I reached Orchard, the nurse called me. The dog just bit my daughter. She was everything to me. I started to stay with her when she was 3 months old. I was dropping her to the crèche. I'm driving a taxi. Loading people. When I reach the crèche past 6 in the morning, they do understand that I must sign and drop my daughter inside. 1:30 to 2, I'm going to pick her up every day. It was our routine. It's very hard, serious.
I can imagine.
It's very, very, very hard. I'm a single parent. Even now, I don't want anyone near my older daughter. And then they were they're my daughters, but different mothers. But they are staying with me and my mom and my dad. went to the hospitals, the doctors, but let me tell you something. It doesn't help. Didn't help me with anything. Sometimes I'm sitting alone crying every day. Even today, from this topic started, I was listening every day. Very hard, serious.
And thank you for sharing, Matlasi.
Yeah, but sometimes when you like, someone asks you what did happen, what's going on, that thing is not right.
Yeah.
So to heal by yourself sometimes it's like when you are talking about it, not someone asking you about it. And then even if you are putting pictures in the profile in your phone, sometimes it makes you heal. But some other people, they don't even understand it. I'm celebrating her birthday. She passed away on the 29th February. Her birthday is on the 10th March. We buried her on the 7th March. It's very hard, sis.
I can hear.
Serious.
And thank you for sharing. Thank you, Matas. Thank you.
Okay.
I really wish I could dedicate the whole show to this, but Rebecca, time is not on our side, unfortunately. Can maybe I start you off with advice that you would give to parents during this time? I'm going to probably pause you within 30 seconds, and then I'm going to go to the news, and we're going to come back, and then you can just advise parents as well as you and Tabi Singh. If we can start, Rebecca.
Okay, so for me, I think it's important to get the support that you need going through your grief. And that could be therapy, it could be a counsellor, it could be, a fellow bereaved parent. But I think that would be the first thing that I would do to help you understand the journey. What I found in the counselling through compassionate friends is that people don't really even understand, what grief, the journey of grief, the stages of grief. And so I get questions like, is it okay to cry? What can I expect? And I think being able to talk with somebody who can say, these are some of the things that you might go through, that, gives them more understanding and a little bit of hope, because I think we need, more than anything, we need hope in our grief. Yeah. That, even though we're on a very dark journey and, your life can feel almost like a burnt forest, in time, little shoots of new hope will come through.
Rebecca, hold your breath, because I also want us to get into the contact details of Compassionate Friends. How do we get a hold of you guys? Right now, it's 2:30. Let's get your latest in Power News.
12 to 3 p.m. Power Lunch with Faith Mangope.
All right, the time is not on our side. It never is. And Tabi saying we're wrapping up with you. How do parents navigate grief and navigate it intentionally?
Okay. Yeah, I've had an emotional moment there myself. Yeah. But I'd like to highlight this 4 important points. Crying is the only form of pain relief that the heart knows. It's okay to cry. No amount of crying will cause you harm. So give yourself permission to cry as a parent as much as you want and for how much length that you want. Pain and acceptance. Accepting that your child is gone does not minimize the pain. Acceptance and pain can coexist and actually should coexist, because when you're dealing with the pain that you have accepted, it's different from dealing with the pain that you refuse to accept. And when it comes to people dictating how you should grieve, I think I mentioned when I started that grief is how you need to give yourself permission. You allow yourself to grieve. You form your own grieving journey. There's no right or wrong. The last thing you want is to be conscious of what you are doing, the shoulds and the not. You just give yourself that permission to grieve. The stages of grief, we preach the stages of grief. Let me tell you, we go through the stages of grief for our lifetime. Today you can be in a different stage. Tomorrow you can be in another. The stages are not linear. They are upside down. It's the nature of grief. Allow yourself to go through them. But when you are conscious of the stage you are in, you are more likely to treat yourself with compassion, love, and the care and the support that you need. Lastly, I would like to say, give yourself the same treatment you would give to the next person. We are good to care for others, but are very tough on ourselves. The very same way you would treat another parent in your situation, treat yourself that way. you deserve that love and compassion as much as you would give to the next person if roles were reversed.
Got you, Rebecca. The Compassionate Friends, contact details. If we need support, we need the extra love and care, how do we get a hold of you?
The key thing, I think, would be to visit the website, which is compassionatefriends.co.za. There it's got the links to the Facebook page. So there's a Facebook page for the general Compassionate Friends. There's a suicide support group. The telephone number, if you would like me to give it.
Yeah,
so
please.
We're open from 9 to 1, Monday to Fridays. And there you can, anyone can phone in to make an appointment with a counsellor. There's no charge for that. We just, rely on donations and our corporate sponsors. So the number there is 011-440-6322.
Just repeat it for us, please.
011-440-6322.
6322. Okay.
There's also, I was encouraged today about how many fathers have called in, and there is a separate group for bereaved fathers. I can share that number if you are interested. That's 066
066
129.
Just move around for us.
129
129
7772.
7772.
And then
those are for the fathers.
Yeah, that's a WhatsApp group for bereaved fathers. Okay. We have premises in Highlands North in Athol Street. We've got monthly support group meetings. So the next one is on the 12th of February. Again, you can call in or contact via the website. Then you can join there, where you come into conversation with other bereaved parents. And we also have a beautiful library and a lot of material, information, leaflets, online articles on our website, which can be very valuable to people who want to research what's going on and understand more. And that can be very helpful.
Rebecca, thank you so much. We can't thank you enough. And thank you for the work that you guys do as Compassionate Friends.
Super. Thank you for having me.
Rebecca Warsop there. Let's just be kind. Let's just be kind.
You've been listening to a Power 98.7 podcast. For more podcasts, visit power987.co.za or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.